AI bad. Yes, I know, a hot take. And yet it seems a lot more prevalent in the gaming industry than I originally thought. Larian Studios, the company behind blockbuster hits like the Divinity series, and of course my favorite, Baldur's Gate 3, admitted to using generative AI in their games in a Bloomberg interview on December 16th, 2025. 4 days later, another one of my favorite games, Clair Obscura Expedition 33, also admitted they were using AI. I love you for watching that. It ended up losing its Game of the Year award for having used AI at some point in the production process and not disclosing it when they received that reward. I know what you're thinking. Babe, it's May. It's May 2026. I get it. I'm late. But I wasn't here when this was happening, and I still would like to talk about it. Okay, so let me walk you through my agony. Let me just illustrate what this looked and felt like. So, December 11th, 2025 at the Game Awards. I'm crying a lot. What they did, which I think was diabolical, they were talking about women in gaming and they're like, look at these little girls following their dreams and making games and we gave them a prize and blah, blah, blah. It hit me in the feels really, really hard. I'm gonna end up talking about how much I cry in every video and I don't know what I'm supposed to do about that, but at least I'm being honest, at least I'm being authentic with you. ChatGPT could never. So I was crying. Eyes are moist, vision is blurry, mom spaghetti, you get it. They were showing trailers, as they do at the Game Awards. Darkness falls, and then we see this. Now, I can't necessarily, I don't think I can just show you the whole trailer, and I don't think that'd be particularly helpful because you've probably already seen it if you're here. But what I will say is I do want to show some of the parts because they freaked me out and I thought it was really cool. So ends the trailer for the simply named Divinity, which is the third in a franchise with 2 other games. It was disgusting. It was off-putting. It was the stuff of nightmares and I loved it. I could not have been more excited when I saw this trailer. I was literally screaming in my apartment, like trying to scream quiet because I'm respectful, I'm a good neighbor, but screaming a little bit. And as a huge BG3 fan, I was just thrilled. Like, it feels like I haven't even really finished my adventures in Faerun because, like, I never really, like, stopped playing. But already there are more Larian games on the horizon. But then the interview happened and my excitement was a little less. So 5 days later, after the Game Awards on December 16th, Bloomberg put out an interview they conducted with Swen Vincke, the founder and CEO of Larian Studios, which, for what it's worth, is based in Ghent, Belgium. And now you know. Geography, wow. So I did buy the article that sort of covered the main points of the interview. I had to buy it from Bloomberg. I had to pay $2 to access this article, and that was just for the trial period. Like, if I had forgotten to cancel, Bloomberg would have charged me $40 a month. $40 a month for news? That's some dystopian. I don't know what to tell you. Let it be known that I'm putting my ass on the line for the sake of journalistic integrity. Please subscribe. Please. So here's the quote that everyone called Sven out for. I will say I don't have the screenshots anymore because my computer has been a tyrant to manage. So it's gone. Basically, it's gone. I didn't remember, it's gone. But this entire article happened under a banner discussing gaming's AI problem. We are in fact cooked. My friend shared a meme with me today though, and that I really liked. It was like, you gotta be cooked and chopped before you get served and ate. So think about that. I'm going to read you these quotes. Under Vincke, Larian has been pushing hard on generative AI, although the CEO says the technology hasn't led to big gains in efficiency. He says there won't be any AI-generated content in Divinity. Everything is human actors. We're writing everything ourselves. But the creators often use AI tools to explore ideas, flesh out PowerPoint presentations, develop concept art, and write placeholder text. The use of generative AI has led to some pushback at Larian, but but I think at this point, everyone at the company is more or less okay with the way we're using it, Vincke said. And that's probably because the people who had a problem with it already left. More on that later. But at least for me, this was particularly frustrating when paired alongside comments like, the success of Baldur's Gate 3 has allowed Larian to keep growing and stay in step with Vincke's ambitions. The studio now has 530 employees across 7 offices in Europe, North America, and Asia. And now, thanks to the previous game's tremendous success, Larian is in a healthy financial position. Vincke says that all of the Baldur's Gate 3 cash will allow the company to double down on even more narrative experimentation for Divinity. And I simply, we are simultaneously saying that AI isn't improving efficiency, and this company is shitting and or farting mountains of cash, but you're going to keep using it. So it's actually a really short article for $40 a month. That's its own issue, right? But that's really the gist of it. Generative AI, we're rich.
Hello, I like money.
And to be clear, I do have to make a little jokey joke about it. That's who I am. That's what I'm here to do. Especially, like, I don't want to make a lot of, like, depressing content. I know this one's a little depressing, but, like, I did feel like I needed to talk about it. So we are adding jokes to make it less, you know, existential, if you will. To be clear though, I love it. I love that they are making so much money that they deserve because they made a fucking masterpiece. Y'all remember the bear scene? Because I remember the bear scene. I never forgot the bear scene. The bear scene has made a home behind my eyelids. I haven't slept in 2 years. But it really wasn't the article itself that was super interesting. What really got everyone was this admission of AI use, even though they have admitted this before and no one really talked about it as far as I know. But regardless, this is problematic and I was also upset when I learned about this. Really what popped out was that one quote and the swift and unforgiving torrent of feedback that followed. Also, let it be known, like, I made a Twitter, I'm not saying X, that's so stupid, so I could like read what people were talking about because, like it or not, gamers are on Twitter. And as I was reading through these comments, I could literally feel myself sweating a little bit. I could feel my chest getting tighter. Social media is doing something to us. I know, another hot take, but just like, I couldn't believe the physical response, like the physical trauma response my body was having to Twitter. It was like, what is happening? And obviously the first tweet we have to talk about is Sven's immediate response to the situation. His strategy was, let me get big mad. Let me get big mad and yell at my audience. That was the plan, apparently. He says, holy guys, we're not pushing hard for or replacing concept artists with AI. We have a team of 72 artists, of which 23 are concept artists, and we are hiring more. I did fact check this. At the time they were hiring more, I did lose the screenshot. Again, I am so sorry. You'll just have to take my word for it. I checked, they were. That doesn't mean they were before this all happened, but when I checked after he posted this, yes, they were hiring more concept artists. The art they create is original, and I'm very proud of what they do. I was asked explicitly about concept art and our use of Gen AI. I answered that we use it to explore things. I didn't say we use it to develop concept art. The artists do that. And they are indeed world-class artists. We use AI tools to explore references just like we use Google and art books. At the very early ideation stages, we use it as a rough outline for composition, which we replace with original concept art. There is no comparison. I talked about how we use ML here if you would like to know more, and he posts a GameSpot link, which we'll talk about. We've hired creatives for their talent, not their ability to do what a machine suggests, but they can experiment with these tools to make their lives easier. So the article he links to, which was published on GameSpot in April 2025, again, they have been talking about this for longer than everyone would lead you to believe. More time to be creative is the section. It says, automation with machine learning AI is a huge thing, Vincke said. People may not be aware of how much time an animator may spend on stuff they don't want to work on. As such, thanks to automation, it adds a lot to the time that they have to work on the creative stuff, Vincke said. Vincke said it's the wrong attitude to assume that automation will replace various people and departments, because automation should, in theory, allow people people to do more of what really matters and less of the stuff they don't want to do. That's not necessarily cost reduction, he added, but it's going to be an increase of ability, which is a good thing. Not at all shockingly, people didn't like this. I do think this man needs media training.
Just put my ass on a GIF and then just add it on repeat.
Oh, there's GIFs.
I've been sending this to my parents. I've been sending this to my family. I'm proud of the work I've done.
Starting any official statement with holy is maybe not the effect you're trying to go for, unless you're Adam Levine. I do think he had different intentions, and I do think he had different advantages, which allowed that to somehow work out for him. However, you guessed it, instant, vicious blowback. LOL, as someone who's worked there for years, I'm not surprised. He's lying about people being okay with it. From Alessandria, she says, waking up to both Larian Studios and the E33 team admitting to use of Gen AI wasn't on my bingo card, and I am so immeasurably disappointed. Me too, girl. I am so tired of AI being shoved down my throat by every app and website. It is so harmful to the environment and Black communities and steals art from real people. Nicholas Cole says, when you invite generative AI into the earliest stages of the concepting, you are robbing yourself of the most fruitful, compelling, and yes, difficult parts of the creative process. The chance to actually have an idea, that's the moment of magic. Everything else is details. Beautifully said, by the way. I love that. Bikini Bodhi which is clever, says exploring concept art. Brother in Christ, just do concept art. You don't need an AI to make concept art for the concept art. Lauren Walsh Art, she says, using generative AI to explore ideas is using generative AI in the creative process. You are no doubt handing over those exploratory concepts to a concept artist to make something based on that Gen AI. What's even the point? You have amazing professionals on your team that are more than capable. True. We have seen it in action. But the blowback actually wasn't all bad. Some defenders came out to support the company and the use of AI in games. Shy Vortex says, if I speak about the Larian situation, I may upset some of you, but there are people who really need to study the topic before speaking. Learn the differences between AI slop and use cases where it can actually help, stages where it can speed up workflow. It's not always black and white. But if it's trained on your own intellectual properties and only used for ideas or suggestions in the very initial development phase or for debugging purposes, help to find bugs, speed up QA, testing and fine-tuning before release, then I don't see major issues with that. I hope what Larian CEO says is true and it won't affect the final release, only time will tell. But for now, I don't think people should be judges of the situation at the current state. It's only fair to have doubts, but don't let them cloud your judgment entirely. What I'm saying is, it's somewhat extreme to assume a studio with such a positive reputation and that developed one of the greatest RPGs ever made would go all in into AI and fumble everything they've achieved so far when that's not what has been said. An example of a good use case not all people may know, in parentheses, not everyone is a dev, is when you have a very large documentation for a framework or a library you have to use. Sometimes giving it to a chatbot and asking for a specific thing you need is faster than searching it yourself. We have another response here from Valafor saying, concept artist here, the AI hate directed at Larian Studios is 100% ignorant and bad faith virtue signaling. Artists are not against AI usage as a tool. We're against generative AI that was trained on real artworks and mass-produced slops that imitated our hard work and then marketed as our replacement. In pre-production, the art team would grab random pics off the internet and other games to create a general mood board for aesthetics and vibe that fit the art direction. A mood board of a character may include several pictures of other video games or anime shows, dozens of objects with texture references for parts of their attire, multiple reference pictures of relevant objects such as animals or historical weapons, or even other character artwork made for other games, all of which are randomly drawn from the internet and put together for the purpose of creating an overall aesthetic for a design that will become original in its own way, inspired by its references and the artist's own creativity, and originally to visualize it when they create the design by doing art. Girl, periods. Larian Studio mentioned using AI to streamline this process and actively menial labor of looking for relevant and cool pics on the internet in essence. None of the pictures grabbed by either the AI or the art team in this process are being exploited for any monetary gain since they're simply inspiration and visual direction. This has been standard practice in the industry for decades. And I thought it was important to highlight these different angles because I'm not a game developer. Unfortunately, we live in a post-AI world. There's the world before and after ChatGPT. That said, people have been using AI before then for a lot of different things. It's been used historically for digital assistants like Siri and Alexa, personalized recommendations. So think Amazon, like recommended purchases, Netflix, recommended views, like what you would like if you like this. Social media photo tagging, fraud detection in banking, and language translation. And I'm not defending generative AI. What I'm trying to do is figure out if this is actually helpful for developers. That's what I'm trying to figure out. And I don't know because nobody agrees. After this blowback, I'm assuming either he felt bad and was like, I need to release the transcripts, or Sven asked him directly. I don't know. What I do know is that the original conductor of the interview released at least a section of the transcripts and that talked about this specific piece. Jason, speaking of efficiency, you've spoken a little bit about generative AI, and I know that that's been a point of discussion on the team too. Do you feel like it can speed up production? Sven says, in terms of generation, like white boxing, yes, there are things, but I'm not 100% sure if you're actually seeing speed ups that much. You're trying more stuff. Having tried stuff out, I don't actually think it accelerates things because there's a lot of hype out there. I haven't really seen, oh, this is really gonna replace things. I haven't seen that yet. I've seen a lot of where you initially get excited, oh, this could be cool. And then you say, in the end, it doesn't really do that thing. Everything is human actors. We're writing everything ourselves. There are no generated assets that you're going to see in the game. We're trying to use generated assets to accelerate white boxing. But I mean, to be fair, we're talking about basic things to help the level designers. White boxing, very generally broad overview, is the initial rough 3D prototyping phase where developers build game levels, environments, or objects using basic shapes like white or gray cubes, cones, cylinders, rather than final detailed art. It's a quick and dirty technique used to test gameplay, player movement, and scale before investing time in high quality assets. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know anything about this. I'm just a curious cat with a laptop and a dream. Moving on in the interview, Jason says, what about concept art? Sven says, so that's being used by concept artists. They use it the same like they would use photos. We have like 30 concept artists at this point or something like that. So we bought a boutique concept art firm at the moment that everybody was reducing them because they were going to AI. In our case, it just went up. And this was before the backlash. Keep that in mind. So I just pay attention to the tone because I think it's saying something too. If there's one thing that artists keep on asking for, it's more concept artists. But what they do is they use it for exploration. Jason says the other thing that I've seen being used for more and more is placeholders, stub dialogue. Sven says, well, yes, so it depends on the scripter. In our case, what we do is whiteboxing means that the scripts put stub text in there. Some scripters will probably use a ChatGPT, some will write it themselves. It's really up to them. Jason says, but you found that's not actually speeding things up. It's just kind of allowing more experimentation. Sven says, well, in the sense that speeds it up because your experimentation is broader. But I mean, it's not as if their dialogues are suddenly being written faster. And on the contrary, it's not as if you're seeing the scripting going faster. What's happening there is just more stuff being done. But I mean, if you've used ChatGPT, it helps you organize things, gets you a faster, and Jason says, until it screws up, and Sven says, right. You still will always have to alter it yourself. And I mean, like, I'm non-native English, so it's easier for me to make my phrases without mistakes. So it helps with that. And I feel bad because, like, I can see the point in that. So some of you know I did a video on Zara Larsson, and I saw this video where they were making fun of her because she couldn't spell eagles. She couldn't spell the English word eagles. Like, guys, she's from Sweden. Like, English is her second language. She's not going to be able to spell and eagles is a stupid word. Anyway, be nicer to people. Like, why can't we give people the benefit of the doubt? I'm a Pisces. Blame it on that. Jason says, and this is the question, it doesn't seem like it's causing more efficiency, so why use it? Sven's response is, this is a tech-driven industry, so you try stuff. You can't afford not to try things, because if somebody finds the golden egg and you're not using it, you're dead in this industry. Jason says, okay, but the downside though is that it's so poisonous, it's controversial to players, to artists, to creative people in a way that other tech isn't. Maybe Photoshop used to be back in the day? Sven says, I think you would find the same argument back in the days for a lot of things, right? Anything that was automated has always considered, I think that's the part of this job, is to make sure that you're competitive and state of the art. So if you don't look at the state of the art, you will eventually regret it. That's going to be even worse for the developers. I'll say it again, I'm just a little freak on the internet. I don't know what the right answer is. To be clear, I hate generative AI. I hate what it's doing to, I'm gonna cry. I hate what it's doing to art. I hate what it's doing to artists. I hate what it's doing to jobs. Oh my God. I did not think that this video was gonna get me, dude. If that isn't proof that I hate it, I fucking hate it. I have friends who are artists and writers, and to see the stress where it's like, yep, AI stole my work. You know, I want to buy art for this naked ass wall and I can't, because I can't tell what's AI and what's not anymore. I think art is the most important work sector. And, you know, people are going to say doctors, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to be alive if there isn't art. I don't want to be alive if there is no joy, there is no experience of the work of other people. Like, I don't need that doctor to save my life. If there's no artist, I don't fucking care, let me die. So I'm very passionate about this, unfortunately. Had to check my mascara, dude. I did not think that hit me like a freight train. I do think, though, there is a nuance that maybe I don't fully understand as a game developer, and I think that's worth exploring before we say immediately, you know, this person, they're evil, they're awful. It's especially with this company where they do have a lot of good values. They're very progressive, they're very leftist. They have so much to say for, you know, trans rights, LGBTQ plus rights. They've done such incredible work and that's changed our lives with their games. So I do think it's worth exploring this nuance, and that's kind of why I wanted to make this, not necessarily in defense of Larian, but because I want to extend this conversation, even though I am late and this happened like 6 months ago. So under a ton of pressure from the fans of the studio, as well as, I'm assuming, just trying to promote Divinity, 11 Larian team members, including Sven himself, held an Ask Me Anything on Reddit on January 9th, 2026. So this is a couple weeks after this initial interview went sort of viral in the gaming community. I want to share a few things. If you're as much of a nerd as I am, and you haven't read the thread, please do. I promise you will be delighted and excited and thrilled, and it will make life feel like living for a little bit longer. And isn't that what we're here for? A baby. But the core of the Q&A for the purposes of this video happens right here with Priceless Pennies. First, I just want to say I love your games. I've played Divinity 2 OS and BG3, and they were both fantastic. I'm curious, what is your opinion on the role of, in parentheses, generative AI in the game development process and for your studio in particular? Sven says, hi, happy to hear you enjoyed our games. So first off, there is not going to be any generative AI art in Divinity. I know there's been a lot of discussion about us using AI tools as part of concept art exploration. We already said this doesn't mean the actual concept art is generated by AI, but we understand it created a lot of confusion. So to ensure there's no room for doubt, we've decided to refrain from using Gen AI tools during concept art development. That way there can be no discussion about the origin of the art. Having said that, we continuously try to improve the speed with which we carry things out. The more iterations we can do, the better in general the gameplay is, and I trust him on that. He's the expert, I'm not. We think generative AI can help with this, and so we're trying things out across departments. Our hope is that it can aid us to refine ideas faster, leading to a more focused development cycle, less waste, and ultimately a higher quality game. The important bit to note is that we will not generate creative assets that end up in a game without being 100% sure about the origins of the training data and the consent of those who created that data. If we use a generative AI model to create in-game assets, then it'll be trained on data we own. Amihan the Stoic says, good to hear about the decision, but does this new stance only apply in concept art? In the case of writing, I remember there was mention of using Gen AI to make placeholder text. How does this benefit development over, say, just a simple stub text? And in the case that the generated content is considered as good enough to be there as is in final, or at least heavily influencing the final writing, how can it then be claimed that there won't be any AI-generated content in Divinity? Adam at Larian, the writing director, says, the stance applies to writing as well. We won't have any text generation touching our dialogues, journal entries, or other writing in Divinity. To answer your second question, how does generated placeholder text benefit development over simple subtext? It doesn't. Thank you. We had a limited group experimenting with tools to generate text, but the results hit a 3 out of 10 at best, and those tools are for research purposes, not for use in Divinity. Even my worst first drafts, and there are a lot of them, are at least a 4 out of 10, even though Sven might disagree. And the amount of iteration required to get even individual lines to the quality we want is enormous. From the initial stub to the line we record and ship, there are a great many eyes and hands involved in getting a dialogue right. I'm not sure what I think about this. It does make me chuckle. So I like Bread a Bunch, fantastic name, first of all, says, what so far has been your favorite part of making Divinity, and what has been your least favorite part? Sven responds, least favorite, answering questions about AI. Favorite, all the rest, smiley face. This man, something tells me he's a little petty, and I know I shouldn't like that. Like, we don't want rich CEOs to be a little petty. Unfortunately, I am biased, and I kind of like it. Here's the ultimate question. Can tools like AI help game studio employees, particularly when positions in these fields are fraught with overworked, underpaid employees, staking their mental health and lifestyle on a gamble to live out their dreams in the video game industry? And if it can, is it worth it to let these employees use tools that are harmful to the artists, the environment, marginalized populations, and even the future of thought? When I put it that way, I do feel like the explanation is pretty clear. I think it can be very easy to say AI bad because it is, but we could consider things like the impact of a single artist using AI for, let's say, white boxing activities. Multiply by 23, which is the number of concept artists they have now. Is the impact worth it for the joy it brings people? The ease it brings to people who bring these vessels of joy? I'm not here to tell you what to think. I struggle to have strong opinions because I know how much I don't know. And I know I'm not an expert at this. And no matter how many hours of research I do, I'm not going to be an expert at this. It's not cut and dry because I'm not in this industry. But I did want to bring this to the forefront just to talk about it, just because I think it's interesting and I think it's a discussion worth having. So please tell me what you think in the comments. Are you going to buy Divinity, or is this a deal breaker for you? What would Larian have to do to win back your loyalty if they've lost it from this whole situation? And where do you see AI as it relates to the gaming industry? I'd love to hear your thoughts. See you later, buddy, old pal, old friend, old buddy, pal, friend. Bye.